In 1861, an 8-year-old boy passed through the gates of Poplar Workhouse with a sense of dread that would sear itself into his memory for the rest of his life. Will Crooks was one of 7 children whose mother Charlotte could no longer feed them on a seamstress's wages. His father George had lost an arm in a steamship accident and could no longer work. The poor relief had been withdrawn, and there was nowhere else to go. Inside the workhouse, 5 of the Crooks children, along with their father George, were torn from Charlotte and the other 2 children who remained outside. The food was so wretched that inmates deliberately broke the rules, hoping to be transferred to prison where they would at least be able to eat better. After 3 weeks, Will and his siblings were sent to a poor law school in Sutton. His mother eventually scraped together enough money to reunite the family, but Will never forgot his experience. He swore an oath to himself. When he grew up, he would dedicate his life to improving the lives of those trapped in poverty. It was a promise he would keep with extraordinary determination. By the 1890s, the docks and shipyards of the Isle of Dogs were central to British imperial commerce. Ships from Mumbai, Cape Town, Kingston, Sydney and Hong Kong all unloaded their cargoes here. Tea from Sri Lanka, spices from India, rubber from Malaysia. The riches of empire flowed through these wharves. The work was brutal and the conditions Dickensian. Men assembled each morning hoping to be selected for a day's labour, going home empty-handed if they were not chosen. Wages were pitiful, even for those fortunate enough to be hired. For the tens of thousands who lived south of the Thames in Greenwich and Woolwich, where housing was cheaper, getting to work presented a deadly gamble. The nearest bridges lay miles away in central London. The only option was the steam ferry, which charged a penny each way, a considerable sum for families already on the brink of destitution. Worse still, the ferry was unreliable. When thick fog blanketed the Thames, as it frequently did in Victorian London, the service stopped entirely. During storms or difficult tides, it became treacherous, if it ran at all. Some employers on the Isle of Dogs flatly refused to hire foremen or timekeepers who lived south of the river, deeming them unreliable when fog prevented the crossing. Workers faced an impossible choice: pay for lodgings north of the river that they could not afford, risk the crossing in all weather, or walk miles to the nearest bridge and back, adding hours to an already exhausting day. Occasionally, inevitably, people drowned. Will Crooks understood this predicament intimately. After being dismissed as a cooper for political agitation, after daring to speak up about working conditions, he had taken work as a casual labourer in the docks. He had made that crossing, and he had felt the humiliation of rejection at the hiring stand because he lived on the wrong side of the river. But by 1898, through sheer force of intellect and an extraordinary gift for oratory, Crooks had transformed himself into something remarkable, a member of the London County Council. More astonishing still, he had been elected to the Poplar Board of Guardians, the very institution that had condemned him to the workhouse as a child. When he became chairman of the council's Bridges Committee that year, he finally possessed the power to change things. He proposed a solution that was both radical and simple: dig a tunnel beneath the Thames. Make it free to use. Make it accessible at all hours, regardless of weather or tide. Build it for the workers. The engineering challenge was formidable. The Thames riverbed at this point consisted of waterlogged gravel and chalk, unstable and treacherous. Tunnellers would need to excavate 15 metres below street level, working in conditions where a single error could flood the entire shaft and drown everyone inside. The tunnel would span 370 metres. The project was led by Sir Alexander Binney, the London County Council's chief engineer and designer of the Blackwall Tunnel, which Crooks had also campaigned for. Work began in June 1899. The method involved a tunnelling shield, a massive iron framework pushed forward through the earth while workers excavated from behind its protection. Progress was agonizingly slow, roughly 3 metres per day. A team of 15 men, working day and night shifts, dug through chalk and gravel entirely by hand. It took 3 years. The tunnel was lined with cast iron rings, then concrete, and finally covered with 200,000 white glazed tiles. These were not merely decorative, they kept the tunnel bright, hygienic and maintainable. And at either end, red brick and iron entrance buildings, crowned with distinctive glazed domes that allowed natural light to filter down the spiral staircases, 100 steps at the deeper Greenwich end and 87 at Island Gardens. On the 4th of August 1902, a bank holiday Monday, the Greenwich Foot Tunnel opened to jubilant crowds. This was not merely infrastructure, it was dignity incarnate. No more extortionate ferry fares, no more dangerous crossings in fog, no more choosing between employment and family. The tunnel was free, perpetually open, and indifferent to weather and tide. 2 years later, electric lifts were brought into service, making the tunnel accessible to those unable to manage the stairs. Will Crooks' career continued its remarkable ascent. In 1900, he became Labour's first mayor of Poplar. A few years later, he entered Parliament as MP for Woolwich. He championed old age pensions, women's suffrage, employment benefits, and fair wages. And yet, like many progressive reformers of his era, Crooks's vision of social justice was selective. As an MP, he would demonstrate dehumanising and utilitarian views towards those with cognitive disabilities and mental illnesses, and even a support for eugenic policies. The tunnel he had fought for endured. It witnessed the decline of the docks throughout the 20th century and their eventual closure in the 1970s. The Isle of Dogs, once among the world's busiest industrial districts, became derelict wasteland. But the tunnel survived. It survived the Blitz too. On the 7th of September 1940, the Luftwaffe began 57 consecutive nights of bombing that devastated London. The docks were primary targets. During the raids, the tunnel served as an air raid shelter. In 1944, however, a bomb struck near the northern entrance, and the explosion flooded part of the tunnel. The old ferry service was temporarily reinstated, some rowing boat owners charging 2 shillings per passenger, a steep price compared to the tunnel's policy of free access. Post-war repairs required reinforcing the damaged section with concrete and thick steel. The tunnel narrows conspicuously near the northern end, from 4 metres to 2.6 metres in diameter, visible evidence of the night it nearly perished. But it did not perish. It was patched up and continued working. Today, the Greenwich Foot Tunnel remains true to its original purpose. Still free, still open 24 hours a day. Those 200,000 white glazed tiles endure, many original to 1902. The glass domes still crown the entrances. The spiral staircases still wind down into the earth. Approximately 4,000 people traverse the tunnel daily, over 1 million crossings annually. Commuters travel between Greenwich and Canary Wharf, which rises in glass and steel from the very docklands that necessitated the tunnel's construction. Tourists walk beneath the Thames, emerging at Island Gardens with stunning views towards Greenwich's Old Naval College, the Cutty Sark, and the Royal Observatory. Some, surely, are spiritual descendants of those dock workers, ordinary people trying to get to work, using public infrastructure built over a century ago to ease their daily struggle. The Greenwich Foot Tunnel represents Victorian engineering doing what Victorian engineering did best, solving practical problems with elegance and permanence. Will Crooks championed a tunnel that has outlived him by more than a century, a tunnel that saved lives, not dramatically, not all at once, but slowly, reliably, one crossing at a time. London teems with monuments to the great and powerful. Perhaps this modest, functional tunnel is a monument to everyone else. And over 120 years on, it's still doing its job.